I've got my 1 pound ball of clay. And then we are going to start throwing this. So, like most things in pottery class, especially in ceramics 2, you will be making a cylinder before you shape it into any other form. So I am going to start by centering this. I did not have to wedge or cone this clay because I cut it from the block perfectly. My right hand is on top, my left hand's on the side. I'm gently applying pressure until the clay stops bobbing my hands, and then I gently release. All right, next up, I'm gonna drill 2 thumbs together. When I drill, I do want to leave a thick bottom, okay? We are going to put feet on the bottom of our mugs. Not only aesthetically does this look better when you have a foot, but for the purpose of a hot beverage, you don't want a giant flat bottom on your wooden table. So we have a foot, so it's raised up, okay? People just like that better. I've heard that from many different people who have purchased my mugs in the past. So we're gonna open it 2 fingers straight because we're making a cylinder. We're not slanted, that's only for bowls. So I'm gonna use both hands for stability. My elbow is rested. I'm going to pull towards my body. If you ever notice or hear that your bat is shaking, you can always take that left hand and just kind of press down on the bat when you do it as well. Okay, I'm gonna open that up about that wide because that is, I don't need a ginormous mug. I only have a pound of clay here. Next up, I am going to take my sponge and compress the inside. Make sure it's nice and flat. Okay, and again, I did leave enough clay down there for a foot. Make sure you do as well. If you've drilled too deep, start over. Okay, I'm gonna do second centering at this stage. So my left hand is going to kind of pinch, because I do feel a slight little wobble. I don't know if you guys can see that in the video, but there's just a little baby wobble. So I'm gonna hold here, and I'm just gonna kind of hold the clay in place while my thumb just kind of pushes that little wobble that I feel back in. My right hand is on top because I don't want it to get much taller. I'm trying to just fix the wobble, not necessarily raise at this point. All right, so I feel like the wobble is a little bit better. So now I am going to raise. My right hand has the sponge. Okay, we don't have a ton of clay here, so I don't need to use all my fingers to raise. I'm probably just gonna use my pointer finger. My left hand is on the inside with this side of the finger, which is straight. I don't use my fingertips unless I'm making a bowl, okay? But I'm gonna trap the clay between my 2 index fingers and raise it up. And when I am raising to create something other than a cylinder, like a mug, a bottle, a vase, I don't want my top to get too wide. So I always call this the volcano shape, because you can always bring your lip out, but it's difficult to bring your lip in. So I just kind of keep it tucked, okay? So I'm gonna do this again. Start with both my index fingers would be touching if it wasn't for the clay. And I'm going to squeeze this up. I'm gonna keep raising until my clay is the ideal thickness, which is about 1/4 of an inch, a little bit less when you're throwing. You want your pots to be nice and thin. Okay, so I've got that raised up. Your mugs do need to be 3 inches, so that way they could actually hold a beverage. Okay, and typically your clay is the thickest at the bottom, so sometimes you might have to come back in and just raise just that little part up. Okay, after I raise, I want to make sure I don't have any issues, so I'm going to take my wooden rib. I'm just going to kind of compress and straighten this. I've got a little bit of wobble here and there. I'm also going to take my needle tool and I am going to trim my lip. Remember when you trim to hold your lip? And then just slowly insert the tool, cut off all that unevenness. And then I also want to get the water out of the inside because that is only going to deteriorate the bottom. It's not going to help my project. Okay, so I've got a cylinder. In reality, this could be a mug, this shape. That is fine to pick, but for the sake of this video, I am gonna show you how to shape. So basically every form on the wheel, you make a cylinder and then you can push out the wall or choke in the wall. So I'm gonna show you both. So I like making mugs that are a little bit rounder towards the bottom. So I am using my fingertips now. My right hand is just gonna support so I don't knock my project over. And I'm pushing, kind of bellowing out that bottom. At the top here, I'm going to choke, okay? Collar would be the more correct term, but I know that high school kids will probably remember this easier. And so I'm just gonna choke in the top, okay? So I've got some shape going on. Now it is time to use my favorite tool, the metal rib, because this one bends. You can use a rubber rib because metal can cut your project. So if you're not comfortable, I suggest you use the blue rubber rib that we have. But my inside hand is touching the pot, okay? And where I'm touching on the outside, my left hand is touching on the inside. And I'm just gonna shape, kind of follow the shape of this curve that I'm creating, okay? And I kind of softened it a little bit. I didn't want it to be too drastic. You don't want to have a like 90-degree angle, okay? Because otherwise when you're drinking, like if this was choked in a crazy amount, then when you're drinking, all of the hot beverage would fall on your face. So you want to have some gradual angles. You don't want to have super sharp angles when it comes to a mug. So I've added a little shape to this, okay? And then I am going to address the lip. The lip is one of the most important parts of a mug because that is where your mouth would touch when you were drinking. So I'm gonna trim it again just to make sure it's nice and level. And then we're gonna do something called tapering. So I take my sponge and I'm going to just basically squeeze right here so that this top part of the lip is a little bit narrower than the bottom so that it's easy to drink out of. It's not super chunky, okay? And then I'm also gonna just angle this lip out a little bit so it is easier to drink out of. The liquid will wanna pour out of the mug and not stay in the mug. Okay, last but not least, I'm gonna wet trim this bottom corner off with my wooden stick here. So I'm gonna get that nasty clay off down there, save me some time for when I am trimming this. And that is how you make a mug.